Okay, now let's create our frame. We want to click here and create this rectangle tool. And as always, make sure that you didn't select any of your layers. As you can see, I'm not selecting any one. And then click and drag to create our rectangle. Something like this should work fine. We just need to make it this stroke a bit less. And we can change the stroke color to maybe this bluish one which we have here. But let's make it a bit more blue. And click OK. Also, we can press Enter on keyboard and let's call it rectangle. And we can apply effect called Drop Shadow. Just click here on Effects Presets and let's type it Drop Shadow. And drag it on your rectangle. We can change the distance to see it better. And we can even change the color. So now as you can see, we have our Drop Shadow effect. And we can angle it to this kind of angle. And maybe decrease the distance. So now as you can see, it looks a bit more like a 3D object. And to make it look even more like a 3D object, we can click here. And this allows us to press R on keyboard and rotate it in 3D space like this. We don't want to go overboard because it still is not a completely 3D object. It doesn't have any thickness, as you can see. So we would want to have this rotated maximum like 72 degrees, but not more. And here at the moment of the pulse, it will appear. So let's cut it to this moment. And let's create a keyframe to Y rotation by clicking on this stopwatch. And a bit later, we can set it to 68, which will rotate it a bit. Also, we want to press Shift and hold and press P. It will allow us to add a position to this layout. So now we can change this position to whichever we want to have, like here, and create a keyframe. And here at the start, we can move it closer to our circle. And in this way, we will have this little animation. And now let's select this keyframe and go to Graph Editor, drag by this handle to the left and to the baseline, as well as this keyframe, go to Graph Editor, click and drag to the left and to the baseline. So in this way we will have this kind of animation. And let's also animate the opacity. Just press T on keyboard and we also will create a keyframe here at the 100%. At the beginning we will set to 0% and here by the end we will set to 0%. So basically we would add this kind of pulse as we would add it to this flash. So it will appear 0%, 100%, as you can see here, and 0%. And by the way, we can change this direction to 180. This looks pretty cool, but I want to move it to the right a bit more. And here is cool trick. If we will press P on keyboard and if we will try to move it to the right, you can see that it creates new keyframe and it's not what we want. So basically when you have any animation already applied, you can just set your time cursor on one of the keyframes. And to set your cursor on one of the keyframes, you want to hold Shift. It will snap to each of the keyframe. So basically I want to set it to this keyframe here. And now if I'm gonna select all keyframes which I have of the position and then click on the position, it will allow me to change the position and not lose any animation which I've already created. Basically now I can just press arrow keys on keyboard. I'm gonna press right arrow and move it to the right. To move it faster, I can hold Shift on keyboard and move it to the right, and it allows me to move it a lot faster. So in this way I can change the position of my rectangle and not mess up this animation of position which I already created. It's a really cool technique. It really comes handy in the future. Okay, now we have this animation, and what we want to do is just to create a bunch of these squares. So here's a cool trick how you can create this a lot faster. Is just to select this rectangle, let's press U to see all the animation, and let's cut it to this moment so we would see where it ends. Let's close it here. And now we can just press Ctrl D to duplicate it and move it to the right, so it will start a bit later. And let's use this trick which we already know, that we can press P on keyboard, hold Shift to snap to the keyframe which we already have, select all the keyframes which we have, press Position, And then, or by using arrows on keyboard, or by changing this value, we can just move our rectangle, just like this. And finally, we can just press S on keyboard. As you can see, we don't have any animation, so we don't have anything to worry about. We can just make it a bit smaller. 90 looks good. And let's duplicate it one more time and move it a bit. And let's press P to see our position. Hold Shift to snap to one of the keyframes. Select the keyframes, select the position, and move it to the right. By the way, it's a good idea to be on the last keyframe. As you can see, I've made this mistake and it goes too far. So this is why I want to be on the last keyframe. Once again, I hold it Shift and I am moving my time cursor on this keyframe. And to be certain that you are on the keyframe, you can see by this lights up animation. Basically, if I am not on top of the keyframe, like here, it doesn't light up. So this is how you know that you're exactly on the keyframe. It lights up. Now I can select all of the keyframes and move it because I want this last position to be here. Also, let's press P here. Make sure that you're on the keyframe. As you can see, it lights up. Select these keyframes, select position, and move it a bit to the right. And now it looks much better. And finally, we can just change this third square to be even smaller, something like this. So this is how you can change this animation. And finally, we can just select this middle one. And let's just change this color to maybe more like orangish, like this. And also drop shadow effect, let's copy this color. So in this way, we will have this kind of variety of colors. And here is a cool trick how you can repeat this animation to this side just in few clicks. Basically, what you can do is to select all of these rectangles, just select one of them, hold Shift and select this last one to select all of these rectangles. And then go to Layer, Recompose. And let's call it Rectangles. And click OK. Make sure that you clicked here on Adjust Composition Duration. It will cut new composition in the right way. And click OK. So basically, as you can see, now all of these rectangles is pre-compositioned into this composition. Basically, we can just open this composition and see this animation. But now we have on one layer, which is really cool because now we can use effect called Mirror. Just type here in Effects and Presets Mirror, left mouse click and drag on these rectangles. We've applied this mirror effect, and now simply just by changing this reflection angle, we can mirror this effect. So let's set it to 90 degrees, and let's change this reflection center. And basically we want to set the center to the center of our screen, which is 960. And now as you can see, this reflection angle is not right, so let's rotate it one more time. And it looks like 180 degrees is right angle. Now as you can see, we don't have to repeat this animation one more time. We can just use this mirror effect, and it really saves us time on creating these kinds of effects. One thing which we need to worry about is to move this rectangle animation just in sync with this pulse, so it would look more interesting. So this is how you can easily create this part of animation. And finally, we will add this really cool swirly kind of effect, which will introduce more techniques which you can use with the shapes. See you in the next video. Okay, now let's create that really fun, twisty kind of effect. So to create that effect, we want to create new shape layer. Just make sure that you didn't select any of the layers. Select your pen tool and click here in the center. You can even zoom in to know that you clicked in the center. Hold Shift, so it would be a straight line and about this length. Now here in the stroke, we can set to the color which you like. We can set the stroke to solid color, and color I'm gonna use for now this one, and thickness maybe 9 will work fine. Let's call it twist. Let's add this twist effect. As you can see with this twist effect, we can add this really fun twist. This twist works from the center of our line. But what would be even cooler is to change the center to be out of this line. So basically, as I've changed this center, I move it from the center here to this point. Then we want to add a bit more twist and maybe move it this center a bit more, so we would have this really round look. And from this point you can add as much of rotations as you like. In my case, I think this looks fine. I just want to go to shape and change this stroke from line cap to round cap, as always. And what we can do is to press S to see scale and make it smaller. And here at stroke size, I can make it a bit thicker. Maybe 15 for me works fine. Then I want to add a really cool effect. Here in contents, we can add repeater effect, which is really cool. If we will open this repeater, we can change how many copies we want to repeat, like 4 copies. And here in transition, we can change not from position X, so it would copy. By the way, you can change from Y position as well. But we can change here rotation, which is even more fun, as you can see. Let's set it to 90 degrees, so we would have this kind of perfect look. And what even cooler, that we can change the scale. But before, let's move this shape layer so it will start exactly the same time where we want it to start. So maybe about here it will appear. So let's animate it. We're using add trim pass. So let's animate this trim pass. At the beginning, as always, we'll set end to 0, about here to 100, and we will get this animation. And here before this keyframe, we will set keyframe to the start, as always, and here to 100% at the end. So as always, this last keyframe we want to set to this kind of animation. At the start, also start slowly, then faster, then slowly. And with this start animation, we want to go to graph editor, and let's set to this kind of animation as well. So it will start slower and faster at the end. And maybe spread it a bit, like this. And now as you can see, this color looks not that interesting, so let's move this twist below the circle. And let's adjust the color. Let's go to the shape. And here in stroke, we can select the stroke. Then go to stroke here. And change to this linear gradient. And click OK. Now we can just select this selection tool. Select this gradient stroke. Zoom in. And spread this gradient to the edge of this effect. So this gradient will spread across all of these lines. And then go to these colors. Here at start we can set it to bluish color, maybe this rich kind of blue color. Then we can add a bit more variety, like this cyan kind of color. Here in the center we can go even with the greenish color, and maybe here let's set it to orangish, and here at the last color let's set it to more like a pink color. So basically, if you want to have this kind of color gradients, you can change to these colors which you can see on screen, and click OK. So now what I want to do is to select our twist shape layer and press S on keyboard to see our scale and make it even smaller, because I want to have this kind of smaller one. And let's change this thickness a bit, and then I will have a bigger one. So to make this animation even more professional and interesting looking, I want to animate our repeater. So let's go to Contents, Repeater, here in Transform. Let's animate this scale. It will also add more interesting look. So I've created this keyframe for 100%. And here at the start, I want to set it to 0%. So basically now, as you can see, it starts from 1 and ends just in a circle, clockwise. And now I just can select these both keyframes and press F9. And if I'm gonna select this twist and press U on keyboard, I'm gonna see only my keyframes. And now I can just spread it a bit so it would not go so fast. And what I can also add is to select our twist and hold Shift and press R. And I am gonna add a bit of rotation. Let's click to create a new keyframe. And here at the start, I want to rotate it to maybe minus 70 degrees. And let's set it to beginning. And here, let's set it to end of animation here. Go to graph editor, and as always, let's create this kind of shape. So it will start fast and slower at the end. Maybe let's spread it a bit. So we will have more of this rotation. And let's also add a bit of glow to these lines. So to add a bit of glow, I'm just gonna duplicate this shape layer. Once again, select this gradient stroke, click on stroke, set it to solid color, click OK, and change it to white color. Increase this stroke a bit. Opacity is set to really small value. So we would have this similar kind of light. I've set my opacity to 11. So we would add a bit of complexity as well, and it will resemble our overall design. So now what we can add is basically we can just duplicate this twist just by pressing Ctrl D to duplicate, and then just press S on keyboard and make a larger copy like this. And here we can just decrease the stroke overall, like here, and change overall stroke by clicking here to overall color like white. We can also press T on keyboard and make it a lot more transparent. Something like 9 should work fine. You can play around with this transparency, maybe 7. And in this way we will add even more complexity and it would look even more interesting. And now let's press 0 on numpad to see what we have. And as you can see that if we will press U on keyboard, this end animation is really starting too soon. So we can just select this start and start of trim pass and spread it a bit. So it will start a bit not so fast, and press F9 and let's go to graph editor and play with this animation. We can just select both of the keyframes like this. And let's make sure that it looks pretty nice. This is why it's a really good idea to work only on one twist layer, so you would not have to change so many keyframes, because it looks intimidating for beginners. But if I'm gonna delete this one, it's much easier to work with, and then duplicate and create the second copy. Okay, it looks pretty cool to me. Let's press 0 on numpad to see what we have as a result. In next video, we will finish this animation, as well as we will add glow splashing looks, which adds a bit more details, and here at the end is also this snowflake kind of spark, which will finish all this look into really cool animation like this. See you in the next video!